So we are on a couple of different Facebook pages today. We are on my public page, Jessica Alstrom. We are on Quantum Life Community. We are also live on YouTube today. This is a very special and important transmission. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Jessica Alstrom, and I am a teacher and a life coach, and I own a spiritual academy called Transcendence International Academy of Consciousness, and that's probably reversed, but you get the picture. So I've got a lot of information streaming through me right now, so I'm going to just ground for a minute. I usually don't have to do this for transmissions. It's usually right there. But I've been dealing with some ascension symptoms big time the last couple of weeks, and anchoring and grounding my own body and the energy that's streaming through me. Just gonna ground for a minute. Take a breath. This is a very big month, and I do this second Sunday transmission to kind of tie everything together, emotionally, physically, chemically, everything that's going on in your world, and pull from astrology, pull from numerology, pull from collective consciousness, and pull from the outside world, the non-physical realms of information, and pull it all together to kind of give you a snapshot of the month. So I've been doing Second Sunday for almost 2 years now. It's usually comes through difficult transitions within my own life, as I am going through my own metamorphosis as a teacher and a human and a mom and a life coach and all the things that we are. And this month is particularly unusual because I'm doing it classroom style. Usually I stand up and it's a presentation and there's interactions, but today I wanted to just do this classroom style for you guys and give you kind of the 411 on what is going to be happening, what is happening, and what will happen over the course of the next 30 days. I'll probably be giving you guys a snapshot of the rest of the year too, just briefly. But again, when we're teaching and understanding quantum theory, everything is just probabilities. There is nothing that is definite, ever. Which means that no matter what teacher you're listening to, no matter what audio you're listening to, there is nothing that is finite. Because thoughts and beliefs and focus determine reality. And as we begin to rise up and focus in different areas, in different places, and change our belief systems, and rewire our thinking, we become different. Therefore, our reality becomes different. And that is basically what is happening. For a really long, long time, we have looked at our world and we have had a desire for change. We have had a great desire for a planet to be led by love and not power. And through the aspect of desire, which is the greatest force in the universe, it is the engine of manifestation itself. It is put forth into the universe, and the collective energy begins to percolate and become. So when the scales tip and there's enough desire for change, change happens. And there is enough desire on the planet, thank you to the star seeds, that have come to populate the planet with a different frequency, one of unconditional love, one of change, one of understanding, one of compassion, and one with a whole belief system buried deep within our DNA that we are here to love each other. And so as those star seeds, those indigos, those children of the sun began to populate the earth, the changes began to percolate in the non-physical reality. Okay, so if you understand dimensions, you understand how thought vibrates at a certain speed. Now, thought itself cannot change your reality. It needs a little bit more ammunition than that. Thought mixed with action, mixed with belief, and that is the exact recipe for a manifestation cycle, which means I can't just think my way into love. I have to become love. I have to take action steps towards that. I have to believe in love. Just the desire of love is not enough. So what's happening is we are going through a grand manifestation of the byproduct of first and foremost wanting change. And now we're moving to the steps in order to create that. But we are in the action phase. And if you know what it feels like to ever make great change in your life, it's usually not very comfortable, is it? Change is not comfortable to a thing you have buried inside of you that is called your ego, which is the lowest form of consciousness that you hold within your unique perspective. You are both dark and light. You are both primal and God. You are both yin and yang. And there is a highly advanced version of you that is within your energy field and within your realm of consciousness that is constantly pulling you into the direction of love. And you also hold the opposite. You hold the opposite version of that. You hold that little voice in the back of your head that says it's about power, it's about control, it's about ownership, it's about being mortal. It's about, I'm afraid to die, and I'm afraid to be hurt, and I'm afraid of love. And because you are that perfect point of duality, you have this constant push-pull that is within you. And as we go through this metamorphosis and this change that's happening, and everything that is in the universe is helping us do this, nothing has been the same since the eclipse. Would you agree? Nothing. And if you study the ancient prophecies and the future understandings of what the prophets in the future are talking about, everything lines up perfectly. We're going through a death cycle. We have completely manifested our planet into the fifth dimensional reality, which means because we have created so much matter that makes up our third dimensional world, we must actually break all of that down if we're going to rebuild a new world. So as I was driving home from the gym the other day, not having the best day, I asked my guides, what is this really about? What are we really doing? Because it feels like 5 steps ahead, 10 steps back right now. It's not like a couple of years ago where you were really watching your progress grow, your manifestations were kicking into high gear, your relationships were beginning to become understandable for you. And now that feels completely lost. And so I asked them, and this is what the voice said, and I hope I don't get emotional. Excuse me. We must fall to rise. Each and every one of us. And we're not falling to have our death experience, but we are falling away from false structure, false identity, false purpose, false understandings, false protection, false awarenesses that have been downloaded into the hard drive of our programs since the beginning of time. And each one of us are experiencing a unique version of that in your own life right now. You know, there are people who are literally losing everything because of a hurricane or the floods. Here in Kansas City, we experienced flooding ourselves. And being in Kansas, we kind of get the little scattered of everybody's weather because we're right in the middle. So we get the kind of collective viewpoint. We're also in the middle, so as empaths, we feel what the rest of this country is feeling big time. But I will tell you that there are not just hurricanes happening in Florida. If you look beyond where the United States is located, this is happening all over the world. Earthquakes, floods, everything you can imagine, hurricanes. There are things that are literally percolating right now to help facilitate this death experience that the third dimension has to go through in order to be fully reborn. Now, as the planet goes through her own deascension, reascension process very quickly, each and every one of us are going through that within our own lives. Weather itself is generated through emotion. The emotional standpoint of the collective of humanity is what creates weather. We are creating our own weather. We are not the victims of our reality. We are the creators. And as we begin to purge the deepest places within us, that will show up right in front of us. And it will show up in areas on the planet where that vibration is in alignment to that activity of emotion. It's just physics. So as we are purging our emotional separation, our suppression, our detachment, we are becoming aware of the lost parts of ourselves the sick parts of ourselves, the unloved parts of ourselves. We are bringing that to light. Isn't that what enlightenment is? Bringing darkness to light. And as we bring forth our own darkness in our own lives, as we manifest the realization of who we are in our relationships, who we are with money and time and health, we begin to realize that we have been governed outside of us for as long as we know. We have used money as a form of protection and identity and stature and success. We have used relationships to feel loved and safe. We have used time to manage who we believe we are in that reality. And we have used health as an excuse. So, we are living a false sense of the true identity of who we really are as the bringers of the dawn. We didn't come here to hide behind money, or a successful job, or letters behind your name, or that perfect relationship that identifies a feeling of security and love. We came here for none of those things. We came for this moment. We came for the rise. And in order for us to be here, we have had to experience everything that everyone else has had to experience, except we have had to experience this empathically. Meaning it's never just been about me. Has it ever been just about you? No, it's been about you and your family and your loved ones and humanity and the planet, hasn't it? It's been about food, it's been about the animals, it's been a place that's inside of you, an ache, that for a really long time you had to live on a planet that didn't identify you as who you were. They identified you with what you had, or what you said, or what you looked like. And in order for us to go to ground zero, we have to create ground zero. So every month I tell you where the collective vibration of humanity is. Last month it was blame. There was an uproar of people who were processing deep, deep, deep levels of blame that they had shoved way down deep into their own bodies. Because everything is buried biochemically within the human structure. It is buried with something called emotion. And emotion is just energy in motion. But when we collect it and suppress it and disassociate it from it, we literally become trapped by it. So let's look at what lightning actually represents. Lightning represents a release. What would a hurricane represent? What hurricane is inside of you? What flood is inside of you? Because the thing is the beauty of this circular motion that we're in right now is that with every flood and every hurricane and every earthquake, we are opening up our heart centers even more to be of service to each other. We are remembering that we are not here for money, success, time, and this body. We are here to be of service. We are here to be the light in the dark. It's about to get real dark. Well, the part about that isn't the best view of the stars in the darkest parts of the world. This is your opportunity. This is our opportunity. I've been saying it for weeks and weeks and weeks in Quantum Life, my online coaching forum that I teach publicly, that this is no longer dress rehearsal for us as light workers. This is no longer dress rehearsal for us as indigos. If you want change, you have to become the change. But the frequency of collective consciousness right now is a sense of drowning. In some area of your life, I can guarantee that you feel like you're drowning somewhere. Whether it's in money problems, in physical problems, in emotional problems, in your relationships. Maybe it's just with your inability to be able to feel like you cannot move ahead. Because collective is in unity in the direction that they process emotion, because it is literally like the 100 monkey effect. When I feel something strongly, I give you permission to feel it as well. And then like a domino effect, we all start to feel safe in releasing our anger. So if last month we were in blame, wouldn't it make sense that first and foremost, everything always occurs in energy and then manifests into form? So if all of collective consciousness was processing blame last month, wouldn't hurricanes and floods make sense this month? Energetically, as a byproduct of energy becoming matter? Because in this time and space, if we really have to fall to rise, we have to go into a higher perspective and look at all of this. Or it's very easy for us to feel the doomsday energy. This is not the doomsday. This is the beginning. This is the truth coming to light. This is your freedom. This is your real abilities to love. This is what the prophecies have been talking about for 2,000 years. This moment right now. It will hit a 0 point on the 23rd of September. But everything will not be perfect at that point, because everything that needs to happen vibrationally to anchor the new frequencies on the planet will then have to be physically aligned with, which means if we don't take action to rebuild and become and start to love in a different way, and start to think in a different way, and start to behave in a different way, then this is going to take longer. Each and every one of us will experience this differently. Each and every one of us resides in our own unique universe. So your perspective of what's happening on the planet may just be the breakdown of your family unit. If you're living in Florida right now, you're probably having a completely different experience. If you're living in Texas right now, if you're living in India right now, if you're living in Mexico right now, all over the world, they're feeling this differently. And whether you're microing this process, which means that you're in the micro process of your drowning, which is your personal reality, your money problems, your health problems, your stuff, or you've decided to feel this change with more of a collective energy and go through this drowning effect somewhere else, then that is completely uniquely been up to you since the beginning you were born, because you have chosen all of this. You chose your demise and you chose your rise. You chose your fall and you have chosen your rise point. But what's going to happen? The number one thing that's happening, and this is happening with all of us, is our egos are being humbled. You think you're scared? You're not scared. You're not scared of what's happening. You're excited. But your ego is the mortal version of you. And your ego is afraid, because ego understands the death cycle, doesn't it? You do not. You are infinite. You have no death experience. You are in a constant stage of rebirthing. All you ever experience in life and death is change. You don't actually ever experience a death process yourself, but your ego does. And your ego is a third dimensional construct of the lowest vibrational consciousness that you can hold within your own energy field. And your body is very much connected to that humanity. Your body is very connected to the density properties of the third dimensional ego. And this is where all of your emotion is held. The cells of your body remember everything that you've been through and everything that it's witnessed everyone else gone through. It remembers everything. And right now we're going through a grand purging of that emotion. And the best way for you to purge your emotion is what? Manifest things to purge from. You don't just sit and decide that you're going to cry one day. You actually manifest something that allows you to go through that perfect grief experience, or that perfect anger experience, or that perfect, feeling trapped experience, or that perfect drowning experience. You are choosing this. We are choosing this. We are not victims of this change. We are here for these moments. But it doesn't mean that we're not all being affected by this. Each and every one of us is going through a different becoming. And at the beginning of the year, I thought, oh, how exciting. We're becoming. Finally, we get to be the butterflies. I mean, how many of you have felt utterly bored on this planet since the day you were born? Limited. No one to play with, no one to talk to, no one to philosophize with. Because you've always had the mindset of the butterfly in the caterpillar body. But if you really actually study what happens to a caterpillar in order to become a butterfly, it's not pleasant. The cells actually begin to eat each other. I actually posted something on my Facebook wall about this because it was such a unique, it was a process that I've never actually studied before. And in order to become, there was complete destruction, just like what a seed has to go through in order to become a flower, a plant, a tree. I mean, think about what an acorn needs to do to become an oak. This is where we are right now. And we're going, why are my relationships falling apart? And why am I not feeling seen and heard? And why do I not feel safe with money? And why is this happening? Well, the reason is because whatever is going to be the fast track for your universal ascension process, you will manifest. Which means whatever is going to get you into the direction of unconditional love the fastest is the journey that you will take personally. We are also on a collective journey, but depending on where your personal frequencies and choices are in your level of becoming, will determine where you are on the planet when that takes place. Because there's no victims here. We're all victors, but we all have to go through this process together, even though we're going through this individually. You know, I could sit in a room right now with 10 spiritual teachers, and they would tell me 10 different ways that they are exploring this process. And each and every one of them would be determined by where their place in their universal conscious level actually exists. Because it really is, levels of awareness is like a school. There are people on this planet who are waking up for the very first time, and there are people who literally have done this over and over and over and over again, and are here to wake up one last time and be the way showers and the guides. And most of us who can hear this transmission are those guides. We are those messengers. We are learning how strong we are. I saw this interesting post on Facebook that said, oh, you're going to have the life that you want, but first you're going to have to learn to be strong. And not ego strong. I've been teaching in my Tika classes for months that anything that falsely represented your freedom or safety would be removed from you. That's kind of scary to think about, isn't it? If you've identified with money as your personal security, then I can ask you to look in your vibration right now and tell me what's going on with money. If a relationship or family or your job or your children or your pet, you fill in the blank. Anything outside of you that is keeping you feeling safe will change its relationship with you this year. And the reason why is because you feel safe right here. And higher self wants you to learn that. And the best way for you to learn is through experiencing the opposite. You know, when your money goes away completely and you realize you're the exact same person you were before, you understand that money was never your abundance. Your abundance lies right here. Your ability to love yourself with no money is your true abundance. Your ability to be homeless and still feel like you have a home is your true abundance. Your feeling of not having anyone around you that is filling in that false sense of love for you is showing you that you are the soulmate that you seek this whole time. So the dynamics of our lives are beginning to unravel and change and deconstruct. And as that happens, your job is to go into a higher level of perspective and look at this quantumly. Look at this in probabilities. Don't look at this in mass destruction. Look in the probabilities of, if I actually went with the flow of this experience, how much faster could I survive the storm? Because the storms are coming. And this is not over. This is not going to be over until the tipping point happens and enough egos become humbled. There's going to be big changes in November in our government. Everything has already begun. The unraveling and the truth of the past, the real truth of the past, will be surfaced. Because let's just put it this way. What happens when the tides come in and then they wash out? What's exposed? Everything we've always wanted to really know about this planet, we will have access to very soon. And as soon as you realize who you really are, which is a creator, God, in a human body, would you ever need a president that first and foremost had a reality show a couple of years ago? Would you need anyone like that governing you? Because if you can survive what's coming, and you will, you may not think you will, but you will. You will no longer have a false sense of security. You will no longer have a false sense in your security in your relationships. Your identity will completely change. And you will become unified with yourself for the first time. And only when you are unified with yourself, then you can unify really with others. Because I can still walk into a unity church, and I can still walk into a conscious church, and I can still see ego, and I can still see judgment. And until that point comes, when I'm no longer judging me, when I'm no longer judging the weaknesses within me, and the fear within me, and the struggle within me, then only can I then love you. Because until I can do all of those things, I still need you. And if I need you, then I need you to behave in a certain way for me. And if you don't, then I have judgment towards you. So this ground zero that we're coming into is about self-reflection and realization of where and what your power really is. Your power is not your ability to be the best friend out there, or the best parent, or the best moneymaker, or have the best body. It is about your heart and what you're willing to give when you have absolutely nothing. And what you're willing to work for and trust in when there's nothing to trust. When there is no safety to hold on to. What does drowning actually feel like? There's no ground to hold on to. Both your hands and feet and body are literally being pulled. There's nothing to grab onto. And this is the experience of the integration of ego. The ego is going to go through its death process. And it's not death, it's life. Because once the ego realizes that it has just believed that it's been mortal this whole time and is actually infinite consciousness just like you, it moves from kindergarten to high school. And as we move from kindergarten to high school, there's a new level of awareness and a little bit of wisdom because you've got your feet wet. And you realize that even the baseline energy of your ego is God itself as well. It just has forgotten. Because dark is not evil. It's the absence of light. Your ego has just forgotten who it is. When you get scared, you have just forgotten who you are. When you get lonely, you have just forgotten who you are. And when we have mass destruction happening in the planet, we remember who we are. We put everything down and we go to help people, even if we have nothing to give. That's who we are. And that is how we're actually going to experience the birth of living in a 5-dimensional planet. Because it's not going to happen by wishing. It's going to happen through action. It's going to happen through the structures changing because we show up differently. Not because we want it. Not because we can't wait for the new generation to come and be brave enough to do it for us. Because this generation, any generation that you chose to come as a starseed, as a light bringer, you have different coordinates. You have different obligations to yourself. Whether you were a baby boomer who came with the first ring, or you're one of the new ones, you have a different purpose. But it is all the same. You know what our generation is having to experience is courage. We're having to find courage inside of us to be the change that we seek. Because although we have always wanted this, we have always had to conform. We've always had to go with the flow and follow the rules. Even though we fought it the whole way, and we've been in judgment of it the whole time. See, these new kids, they don't care what the laws say. They say, well, that doesn't feel good. I'm going to change that. Well, as soon as I grow up, I'm going to tear that wall down. As soon as I get big enough, I'm going to learn to grow food. See, they're not afraid. You know what we're afraid of? Well, what would my family think if I went and opened an organic farm? What would my husband think if I told him that I was using crystals to heal someone? This is the issues that we're dealing with? This is ridiculous. If you want to remember how to be a God, go talk to a child. They know. They remember. They know that it's just about putting themselves back together and then the world back together, piece by piece by piece. But in order for this planet to basically get to ground zero, it needs to unbecome all of its structures. And as we purge all these emotional depths within us, we will continue to have weather. So, how do we help slow the weather processes down? Because if you were to look at astrology right now and look at numerology, you would be able to actually be able to tell where the rest of the weather was going to be coming, because it's all lined up in the stars. But how can you take personal responsibility for speeding this up? Allow yourself to feel. Stop suppressing your anger. Stop suppressing your true nature, which is human and God. You are allowed to be angry. You are allowed to seek change. You are allowed to be sad. You are allowed to feel that broken heart. And only until you allow yourself to do that, because here's the thing, what causes the worst storms is pressure. So when you continue to put pressure on yourself, what we're doing is we're resisting the inevitable. It's literally time to rip the Band-Aid off. The expectations of the next couple of months are going to be based on you personally and what you're willing to let go of. September is about letting go. Rise up. But first, let yourself fall. Be completely humbled by your real belief systems and decide which ones of those that you're ready to let go. The beauty of this is your higher self is navigating a journey for you that will not allow you not to do this. Which means you're going. You can go kicking and screaming, and how you're going to go kicking and screaming is through manifestation. Or you could sit and look at this whole reality as a higher perspective being of light and say, okay, this has all got to come down in order for it to rebuild. How can I facilitate my own destruction quicker, my own ego, quicker, so that I may go through this process quickly, so I may be able to be a proper messenger. Just because you are the bringer of the dawn does not mean that you are free from experiencing what everyone else is experiencing. We are all going through this in our own way. Now, not everyone is going to experience what you're feeling, and that's okay, but you're going to have a level of compassion and understanding because you are drowning in your life while you're watching someone else drown in theirs, and it may not be the same story, but it is exact same frequency. This is when we need to come together. This is when our churches, regardless of the modality or the belief systems, need to be about unity and not identity. Because you know what? When your town floods, does it matter what your status was the day before? Does it matter how much money you have in the bank? Does it matter? You know what it matters is who can come and help me? And how can I help myself? So this is where we are. This is September. Wasn't my highest joy to give this transmission today, but at the same time, I have been going through all of this personally, so be able to express it through more of a collective expression actually is a release for me. To be able to channel it and say, you know, it's not just me who's suffering. And, you know, I know that that's an ego identification unit. Oh, good, we're all suffering. That makes me feel better. But we are all in this together. We are the ones who have come to save the world. Now, every probability through the quantum field of consciousness still equals love wins. We win. If I was going to tell you how this all ends and give you a psychic reading, you're looking at heaven on earth. You're looking at complete unity. You're looking at relationships that are based in unconditional love, not wounding, not trauma, not need. This is what our future will look like. How fast we get there determines on what action steps we are willing to take. What are we willing to give away? What are we willing to change? What are we willing to look at? And what are we willing to feel? And whatever you're not willing to feel, you will manifest outside of you to push you into that emotion. If you're not wanting to feel deep grief, you will manifest a reason to feel the deep grief that's buried within you. It will be forced within you. If you're not wanting to feel the fear inside of you, you will manifest something to bring that up. And this is not bad. This is good. Because emotion comes up and it comes out. The sun always comes out the next day, doesn't it? The rain always stops. And from that process, everything can be rebirthed. And as the tides go back out, as the floods go away, and as everything slows down, what will be exposed will be all the treasures we've been seeking. First and foremost, you will look at yourself as a survivor. And that you survived your own death process. You will be moving out of duality. You will be moving into the whole aspect of light. And you can do that kicking and screaming, or you can do that through the path of least resistance, which is an allowance, which is an acceptance, which is an understanding. And what helps me is to always go into a higher perspective and say, okay, well, what does the ascension actually mean? And just like a birth-death cycle, there is suffering, there's pain, there's struggle, there's all of these things, but none of those things are necessarily bad. They just create pressure. And we're diamonds after all. And that's how a diamond is made. Being under extreme pressure. Because what happens is you become unbreakable. You become bulletproof. You become the hero that you've been wishing would come and rescue your whole damn life. So welcome to the shit show. That is planet Earth right now. And this is the grand reality show of the universe. The whole universe is watching how we facilitate these changes. The whole universe has our back. Trust me. There's a whole non-physical reality community that is literally your unseen army. That is holding your hand invisibly as you go through fires, as you go through storms, as you go through deconstruction. And it will be there as a whisper in your ear of intuition on how to build it back. But we won't know that yet. Because we're not through the delusional part of our own darkness. We've got to walk through the valley of death. Everything that's written is becoming true. And we are just now taking the action steps as the actors of virtual reality, and we are playing out the very script that was gifted to us thousands of years ago. This is our debut. We are the actors that are actually acting out this ascension process in form. Never been done before. In a dense planet like this. Trust me, this ascension process is a lot quicker in other places. This is the densest place that this could have happened because it is literally form. Once form is created, it takes a destruction process to break it up, doesn't it? Or a melting process. So this is where we are. Yeah. But we have each other. And that's why I'm broadcasting in so many places today, because we have each other. And you will need each other. You will stop isolating yourself. You will be forced into community. You will be forced into unique relationships that you never imagined. And it's only coming from a place of you letting your guard down, because that's part of your ego, is to have your walls so damn high around your heart that nobody can really get in, but you're really mad that no one can. You're upset that no one's figured out how to break in, aren't you?
Yeah.
And isn't it symbolic that the very thing that we're moving into, that second huge phase of ascension, is the removal of these walls, was the very thing that Trump wants to build? Isn't it funny how the manifestation in physical reality is always right after the emotional purge? It's like, okay, we are literally saying, we got to let our walls down. We got to become vulnerable. And then we get a crackpot that says, yeah, let's build tons of walls. And we're saying, no. We don't need that. But it's a perfect reflection of the walls that you've had. You may not see yourself as a racist, but your ego is. You might not see yourself as a judgmental person, but your ego is. You might not be afraid of what is happening outside, but your ego is. You have walls, and they're coming down. And they're coming down through force or allowance. You choose. So look at your earth game: health, relationships, time, abundance. Let's add some freedom onto that. Where are you manifesting this transition, this transcendence? And how can you allow yourself by finding unconditional love for yourself, which means sometimes you've got to ask for help. Sometimes you need to learn to receive. Sometimes you need to lose everything so that you realize you have everything. You have to be able to say no, and you have to learn to say yes. And so you're going through the school of hard knocks. Earth is literally going through the school of hard knocks right now, and we're experiencing this all very uniquely. But because we're experiencing it in some way, in some form, we can be there for each other, and that is what's needed. That is why I've built these online communities, so I can teach publicly all over the world instead of one-on-one in my tiny little place in Kansas, and I can reach people who are ready for the messages. And I'm doing that on Facebook, I'm doing that on YouTube. And if any of this information resonates with you today, I invite you to join our communities. And it is Jessica Alstrom Quantum Life on Facebook. And we're building a community right now of people who are learning the art of non-judgment. Tika represents the University of Higher Self. I'm not here to teach you how to be a healer. You already are a healer. I'm here to teach you how to remember. And as we remember together, there is safety in numbers. Because when one person moves into the frequency of their higher selves, we have the ability to create change and effect everywhere instantly, just like a pebble being dropped in water. And if we can come together and do that, how fast can we rebuild this planet? So, you're going to use some elbow grease. Get your work boots on. Get vulnerable. And be ready to lose what you're afraid of losing. And welcome love. In any way it's given. If it's a butterfly landing on your shoulder, welcome it. Move into gratitude. If it's the sun shining on your face after you've had a good cry, welcome it. Start identifying love in the places that you've always taken for granted. And know that as we walk through this valley together, we are going to be completely humbled and free and abundant and pure. Because all of this rain, all of this water is a representation of a purification process that we all must go through. You will not be the same after all of this is done. You will be you. You will be the you that you were before this life told you who to be. You will go back to that little child before the world told you no. You will feel free to talk openly about unconditional love without the worry of judgment. This is what we have to look forward to. Only the ego holds on to their identification. And wherever you are holding on to your identification will be ripped from you in a storm that you create. Whether it be a physical storm, emotional storm, or a chemical storm, you are here to create the storms that are going to purify you in your own unique way. So, do we have any questions? Susie! This camera went black.
I see that.
Okay.
So everything that's happening in the planet right now, I don't want to watch TV. Is that me being naive in not watching TV and not facing the things that are really happening, or what do you think of that?
I would recommend that no one watches TV. So there are different types of news, okay? So there is the fear-based news and there is the true news. I happen to get my news through meditation. I like to direct connect in order to receive information that is a frequency of love or above. Now, there are a lot of things happening on this planet that are not really happening. It's actually about 80% less scary than you really believe. You know? And when you watch the news, you instantly feel victimized because it's too overwhelming. And that's the point. You will not evolve if you're too afraid to move. If you are too afraid to take action, you will not take action. And the thing is we are at the last step of manifestation of our new world, which is taking action and being of service and surrendering. That's the last steps of the manifestational process. I've written a book called Me, Myself, and I, and it is the exact steps that happens through manifestation. There are 7 steps that happen as we fully manifest anything into form. And the last steps of manifestation is taking action. It's being of service, and it's being in complete surrender of the outcome. That is where we are. We're at the end, not the beginning. So this is where fear is going to be at its heightened level. It's always darkest before the dawn. And the powers that be that are trying to keep the ego in reign are going to manipulate you into thinking that you're too small and too scared and too broke and too small to change the world. I use social media to tell good news. I would recommend that you all start doing that as well. Clear your social media of anything that is fear-based and start sharing stories that are really happening on this planet of love, of guidance, of rescue, of positive change. If you go on my Facebook wall right now, you will see autistic children painting pictures. You will see campaigns of forests of foods growing all over the world. You will see what is really happening on this planet because the news cameras are never there for those stories. But someone is. Because the beauty of it is every starseed has a phone. And we're all videoing the truth. And even if it's you saying, I'm so scared right now, I'm going to go on YouTube and I'm going to watch kittens play, that is more in resonance of your divine truth than the news is. The beauty of it is we have cameras and we have phones and we are documenting these changes all over the world. It's just where are you looking? If you go into mainstream media, you will not find stories of the change that's already happening. That the oceans are on the cleanup. 20-year-old children are inventing things to clean up the oceans in 2 years. Grow food. There are people growing enough food in their suburban homes to feed 100,000 people right now. You don't see these things on the news. So if you're guided to not watch the news, I would say that's pretty good intuition. But I would also say as a messenger, if you can't physically take off your jacket and get on a flight and go help somewhere, you can definitely show a story of something positive to neutralize a negative. Because what happens when we have a negative and we take a positive, we create neutrality. And as soon as we can create enough neutrality on this planet, we hit the 0 point and we can rebuild. So it is your job that when someone tells you a negative story, you tell a successful story. Someone comes to you and says, so-and-so just died of cancer. Well, so-and-so just had a baby, right? So-and-so just lost her uncle. Well, Amber just got a new puppy. Do you see, in that communication process, I am neutralizing information. And you're empaths, you're light workers. You've got a billion amazing stories waiting to be shared. I have urged my entire communities for years now to get on camera, to write your blogs, to tell your stories. You're all survivors. You have all lived through something, and your story of survival could make or break someone committing suicide today. Because you know what? When there is someone who's watching TV and they think the world is going to hell in a handbag, and they decide that it's not worth it here, and it's because they didn't hear your story of how you saved your child's life, or how you're showing up in a different way, why would you want to stay? I mean, can you blame? Can you blame the suicide rates right now? Our job as light workers is not to just go put our hands on people and heal each other with crystals. Our job is to tell the stories of the truth of this planet. Of remember who we are. And to hold space for those who have not remembered. Which means be the candle in the dark for someone. And you know what? They may be screaming at you and they may be in judgment of you. And that's okay because they don't remember who they are, but you do. I did an entire workshop about what it's really like to truly hold space. And it has nothing to do with you being a light worker and saying, I'm going to heal you. Sometimes being a light worker is standing in the presence of someone who's attacking you and giving them the gift of love. That's not easy. This is where we're moving to. Do we have any other questions? Amber?
Kieran online asks, what would possibly be here when we can manifest like gods instantaneously? Wouldn't the world be impossibly boring then? I can never imagine what comes next after ascension, and it's a block for me.
I like that.
So
I've actually had that same thought. So the question is what happens once we fully materialize into fifth dimensional, sixth dimensional beings and we no longer have to have time and space in order to create? Wouldn't it get boring? Yes. This is why you chose planet Earth. Because what we're going to be able to experience is the fact that we're going to be able to materialize things through form. Which means we will still have a small aspect of time and space in order for us to enjoy an experience. Because when you're in non-physical reality and you can have every experience all simultaneously, you're not in judgment of the absence of those experiences, and so you have no viewpoint. You are just experiencing it all simultaneously. So we didn't do all of this work for nothing. We didn't do all of this work so that we could just materialize back into non-physical reality. We actually did this work so that we could have heaven on earth. That we could still have the experience of being hungry and full. But it wouldn't be in an act of judgment. Everything that we will experience will not be through a form of duality, but choice. And it will be based in freedom, and it will be an absence of judgment, which means it will be a totally enlightened community of unconditional love, learning how to unconditional love in different ways, in different experiences, using form and time and space. Now, the full ascension process is we will go back to source energy, but first we're going to enjoy what we created. You don't build a house to quickly sell it. You build a house, and you go through all of that in order to live in the house. So what you're doing right now is you're creating your new home. And you will do that through the aspect of understanding that in free will choice and free will of love, that it will be those relationships you've always dreamed of. Think about a relationship that shouldn't have gone wrong because of ego. Think about a relationship right now that if just ego was removed would be a fantastic relationship. Think about what it would be like to live in your house right now when you didn't have to pay that mortgage. How free to create that home would you really be? Which means survival will be removed, but you will still have desire. Desire is the first step of manifestation, and it will always be the first step of manifestation because that is how the universe is created, through expansion. We will always be in a place of desiring until we move back into source energy, and therefore we will desire from a different vantage point. But for a while, once we get through this, we will experience that utopia, that heaven on earth, those peaceful civilizations. We won't move all the way back to light as soon as the storms are done. You will get to reap what we sow, which is what we're doing right now. We are in a karmic resolve from this entire universe. We are cleaning up the messes of the universe on planet Earth. We're cleaning up old galactic wars, old issues, old enemies. Every soul contract you find yourself in is an old timeline issue. There is no one new to you here on this planet. You are cleaning up the past. You are taking responsibility, the ability to respond, for who you've been, both dark and light, on this planet and in other realities. Full circle. This is that full circle process. And the true definition of karma has nothing to do with religious ideals. It is cause and effect. That's it. If you cause something, you will create an effect. And if you've caused something, you will take responsibility for that in some time and space. Simple physics. Any other questions?
Not online.
Okay. Anything else, Susie?
Jeff wanted to know if you can define, you had said 0 point.
So a 0 point would be ashes. Okay? So after there's a forest fire, what's left? Ashes. And what is that? What are ashes? Perfect fertilizer. Mm-hmm. So everything that is not pure about you will be burned away. Everything that's not pure about this planet will be burned away. That is going to be the 0 point, because you can't build on top of a rocky foundation, can you? If I have a home with a rocky foundation, and I say, I don't really like this house, I'm going to change the color of my kitchen, which is how we've been solving problems on this planet for eternity, I might be happy in that house for a good week, wouldn't I? Because I got a new color of paint on my wall. But it does not change the foundation of my home structure. Eventually, I'm going to say, okay, we've got to clean up this foundation if we're going to live here. So what we've got to do is we've got to go all the way down to the foundation and see what's really there and clean up the foundation, which is your 0 point. If you were going to look at a blueprint, that would be your 0 point. And the only thing you need to ever do to change a blueprint is erase it. And we are going to erase it by creating new cause and effect cycles. Okay? The pain, suffering, absence of love, love hurts, love's painful. We've got to move out of that cycle. And we've got to go into love wins. Love is really the only ammunition you have to get through any of this. When all your money goes away, if that's what you choose to experience, not everyone will experience that. You've got to love yourself through that process, don't you? How does it feel to lose something? You feel insecure. You feel like a failure. You feel lost. You feel scared. Those are the feelings that want to come up within you so that you can purify them. So you will bring those feelings up within you somehow, some way. But I will tell you that this is all just virtual reality. None of this is real. This is all a hologram. But we are strong enough to remember that. And that's why I said that when you are the scaredest or when you are worried, go into a higher perspective. Look at this as a game. Look at this as virtual reality. Find your steps of manifestation and follow them like a roadmap out of the dark. Okay, that's what you have. You have a roadmap, and it's called your intuition. But when your ego is loud and telling you that it's scared and that you need to hold on to old things, you can't hear your intuition. Your intuition whispers, not yells. See, the emotional conflict that's surfacing is all loud, isn't it? Your intuition is like that gentle breeze, that water running over rocks in a creek. You know how soothing that is? That's your higher self. It's not the loud volcanoes and the hurricanes. It's not the tsunamis. It's not the earthquakes. That's all ego emotion. And the earth is the macro of the consciousness that is our micro. So she is experiencing exactly what we experience through form. And she is lovingly showing us through manifestation where we are vibrating and what we are actually doing to release. Because the thing is by the time you begin to heal, the crisis is actually over. The healing is where we are right now. Even though it feels like we're in the destruction point, we're actually in the healing part. Now we're practicing love, aren't we? The storms give us the aspect of us to be able to practice love. We've wanted it forever. I mean, when you were a little child, didn't you just want your family just to love each other? Can't we just all love each other? Can't we just all see and appreciate each other? You've been wanting this since the second you incarnated, and now is your opportunity to practice it. But depending on the layers of judgment that you have and your fear and safety issues, that's what's getting in the way for you to fully be able to participate in the practice of being unconditional love and being really what a light worker stands for, which means regardless if you are in the dark or the light, you're a light worker. Regardless if you're feeling darkness, you're a light worker. You can't change what you are. And as we do it, we teach others that it's safe to do it. We remind others through our own experience and expression and example, not by our words, our stories, our physical labor. You know, me sharing a positive story on Facebook might seem, well, that's not really that helpful. Yeah, it is, because it's a vibration. If 6,000 people watch a video about a miracle, then I did my job as a light worker that day. Even if I was homesick, frustrated, and scared in my bed. Doesn't matter. Do something right now to move yourself into the fun part of all of this, because it is coming. And I'm hoping by the time we reach November, we can laugh about this. But we'll see. Because it really is time and outcome depends on us. Probabilities work in focal points. Where you are focused on today determines what you will live next month. Your choice. What do you choose to see about all of this? What do you choose to give your energy to about all of this? How do you choose to show up in this? That will determine what your November looks like. So, anything else?
Nikki says, I feel guilty thinking I'm God. What's that about?
That's a program. That is a program that has been gifted to you through collective consciousness. Because here's the thing. I'm not saying that we, inside of us, we're all creator. We are a fractal piece of that creator. We are a tiny shred of the mirror that is God. And we are programmed from a very, very, very early age that we are not. That we are here seeking God. We're actually here remembering we are. The guilt is a program that comes from society, school, education, government. We've all at least had that thought. Oh, I can't feel bigger or better than anyone. You're not. You're a piece of the pie. You're a piece, a fractal piece of that. You are not special. You are unique. You make up the all. And it takes all of those pieces to fit perfectly to actually make the wholeness of God. So as I remember I am God, and you remember your God, and she remembers her God, then we start behaving like God, don't we? And that's all this ascension process is start behaving like God would, which is unconditional. in actions, beliefs, thoughts, and focal points. Show up. Be the version of the person you wish to attract into your life. Become the aspect of unconditional love for others. Because the second you judge another, you are still God. You have just forgotten. Does that answer that? Okay. All right. I know it's heavy, but it's all worth it. Trust me. Our darkest dawns have always brought us to our brightest lights. And we are in this together, and I said this last month. It's so important for us to find and cultivate together and practice the art of non-judgment. Even when you find yourself in your spiritual communities, watch your judgment. Just because you found your tribe does not mean that you can still be in judgment. It means that you are there to practice the art of non-judgment in a safe space. Very difficult to practice non-judgment in your family. But it's easier to practice in your soul tribe, or in your groups that you've created, or in those communities, or in those spiritual churches that are more in alignment with the frequency of your higher self. That is where you begin to practice. That is where you begin to get your sea legs. And then when you really find people around you who are not in judgment of you, then you feel safe to start practicing it in other places. So we need each other more than now, right now, and we need to remember what we're going through is that we're going through this together, and none of this is bad. I have taught since the day I opened Transcendence in 2014 that every negative is a shortcut. And isn't that true for right now? This is a shortcut. Trust me. If we would have elected a different president or gone in a different direction, this would have actually taken an extra 5 years. So we have fast-tracked all of this. We could be a totally enlightened civilization by 2035. If every single one of us took responsibility for our own vibration and frequency. That's all it is, vibration, frequency. Are you in love or are you in fear? It's a choice every moment of every day. Am I in love or am I in fear? Well, I just lost all my money. Well, how can I love that? Well, I can love the fact that I'm still here and that someone helped me today. I love that. I love the fact that even though I've lost a lot of things, I have gained a whole new perspective about what abundance actually is. It is time to change your perspective. And it is time to be the governor of your own personal frequency and vibration, because that will channel your thoughts, feelings, emotions, and that's how you're going to behave, is what your chronic frequency and vibration actually is going to dictate your behavior. If you're in fear, how do you think you're going to behave? It's going to be automatic and it's going to be subconscious. If you're in love, you move in a different way. Love moves you in a different way than fear does. So move in the direction of love. Flow in the direction of love, and this will all be effortless. It'll be the perfect expression of tough love. And through that, you will obtain wisdom and security and proof, because physicality, action creates proof, doesn't it? When I've actually walked through the fires of my own darkest hell, I have proof that I'm love. I didn't before. I hoped I was, but I didn't think I was. Your action steps, the pushing, your life right now is pushing you into love. So, that's all I have today. Thank you guys so much for joining me. And if you liked, again, what this message was, I do global coaching on Facebook. You can find me under Jessica Alstrom Quantum Life. I have a community page, and then I have an accelerated coaching division of that is actually a closed private group. And then we have an online forum called Quantum Life Tribe, which is a sharing space for you to post your videos, your blogs, your stories, your successes, and really be free to connect through a place of non-judgment of who you are and what you're doing on this journey and how you are showing up as a messenger, and a way for you to express yourself safely in that community. We are trying to release our book right now, and we have done everything through Transcendence, Susie and I and Amber. Everything we've done in our businesses has always been self-funded and self-generated. We have never gone toward the three-dimensional banks for any help or assistance in any of this. We have always believed in what you put in is what you get back. So we are creating a Kickstarter program to get our books published and in your hands, because these 7 steps of manifestation will be your light in the dark for the coming year. To remember where you are on your journey sometimes just takes clarification and reflection. And that's what we've channeled over the last year, are these books that will help you remember your way through the road of being that deliberate creator. So we will put that Kickstarter program on what location? Facebook, on YouTube, and we will be getting that out there. So if you're interested in helping us with that, we would love your help, your donations. Susie?
So they can actually go to Kickstarter or Jump or GoFundMe and actually search for the
What is it called?
It's I don't know. Just search for Transcendence Wellness Center, Jessica Alstrom.
Transcendence Wellness Center on Kickstarter.
Or Jessica Alstrom.
Or Jessica Alstrom. And you'll be able to find our platform there. Frank has done a really great job of writing this content for this book and this Kickstarter program, so I'm sure it will resonate with you. And join our communities, because we'd love to know you, we'd love to hear you, and I would love to walk side by side with as many teachers and messengers as I can. So, thank you guys.